Every time you go to the store, buy gas, or pay rent, you feel it. Prices are rising. But have you ever wondered why? The official explanation is simple. Inflation is a natural part of the economy. But is that really the truth? Or is there something deeper, something designed to keep the rich richer and the rest struggling to keep up? Inflation isn't just an accident, it's a system, one that quietly transfers wealth from the working class to the financial elite. The truth is, inflation is created, and those who control it are the ones who benefit the most. It all starts with one thing: money printing. When governments pump more money into the economy, each dollar becomes worth less. This means businesses charge higher prices and everyday people pay more for the same things. But who profits from this? Banks, for starters. Governments don't print money themselves. They borrow it from central banks, which create it out of thin air and charge interest. The more money is printed, the more debt is created, and banks collect billions in interest payments. While your savings lose value, the financial sector thrives. Corporations take full advantage too. They use inflation as an excuse to raise prices beyond what's necessary, blaming rising costs while making record profits. A grocery chain, for example, it might increase prices far more than their costs actually rise, knowing consumers have no choice but to pay. And who owns these corporations? The same wealthy investors and banks that profit from inflation in other ways. The ultra rich, those who own assets like real estate, stocks, and gold, see their wealth grow as inflation makes everything more expensive. While your paycheck buys less, their investments skyrocket in value. Inflation is their secret weapon, pushing asset prices higher while eroding the wealth of anyone holding cash. Even governments benefit. They owe trillions in debt, but as inflation rises, the real value of that debt decreases. They pay back lenders with devalued money while collecting higher taxes on inflated incomes and prices. It's a hidden tax, one that hits the poor and middle class the hardest, while the wealthy remain untouched. But what about the average person? Wages rarely keep up with inflation, meaning every year workers actually get poorer. Meanwhile, interest rates rise, making it harder to buy a home, start a business, or escape financial struggles. And yet, the media tells you inflation is just part of life, something you must accept. But history tells a different story. Inflation has been used for centuries as a tool to shift wealth upwards. In ancient Rome, the government devalued its currency by mixing cheap metals into gold coins, collapsing the economy. In Weimar Germany, hyperinflation made cash worthless, wiping out the middle class while the rich bought assets at rock bottom prices. Today, the same cycle continues, just in a more sophisticated way. Think about the economic crises of the past. Each time there is a recession, a financial collapse, or an economic downturn, central banks respond the same way, by printing more money. Trillions are pumped into the system, supposedly to stimulate the economy. But where does that money actually go? It flows first into the financial sector, into corporate bailouts, into stock buybacks that inflate the value of companies owned by the elite. By the time it reaches the average person, inflation has already taken hold and prices have soared. The rich, who got access to the new money first, win. The working class, who receive it last, lose. Inflation is not just an unfortunate economic side effect, it's a tool, a system designed to benefit those at the top while keeping everyone else struggling to catch up. It's a slow, invisible transfer of wealth from the poor and middle class to the elite. And yet the media, the government, and the financial world want you to believe it's just an accident, a natural force that can't be controlled. Governments claim they are fighting inflation by raising interest rates. But who does that hurt the most? Not the billionaires, not the banks. It hurts the small business owners who can't afford higher loan payments. It hurts the average family whose mortgage suddenly becomes more expensive. Meanwhile, large corporations and financial institutions continue to thrive because they have access to cheap capital and government support. And there's another aspect people rarely talk about: inflation and globalization. The US dollar is the world's reserve currency, meaning other countries rely on it for trade. When inflation hits America, it sends shockwaves through the global economy. Countries with weaker currencies see their economies collapse even faster. And guess who profits? the same multinational corporations and financial entities that control international trade. Inflation isn't just a national problem, it's a global strategy of wealth transfer. Throughout history, inflation has been used to wipe out the middle class. In ancient Rome, the government devalued currency by adding cheap metals to gold coins, leading to economic collapse. In post World War I Germany, hyperinflation made money worthless, allowing a select few to buy up assets at pennies on the dollar. In modern times, inflation has been weaponized in a more sophisticated way through policy, interest rates, and monetary expansion that benefits the elite while the masses struggle. This is the cycle they don't want you to understand. The same people who create the problem always present themselves as the solution. Inflation is not just an economic force. It is a controlled system designed to enrich the few at the expense of the many. And as long as people believe it's just a natural occurrence, the cycle will continue. So the real question is, are you just another player in their game, or are you ready to see the truth? The first step to escaping the cycle is understanding how it works. Because as long as people don't question the system, those in power will continue to profit while the rest of the world struggles to survive.